Well, welcome to the 700 Club. More details are unfolding in the horrific attack on a Christmas parade in Wisconsin. The suspect had just left the scene of a domestic dispute. Earlier this month, he was accused of running over the mother of his child.
Well, Daryl Brooks was out on bail when he slammed through that crowd on Sunday. He killed 5 people and injured 48. 18 of the injured were children. CBN's Jenna Browder has the story for us this morning.
The community of Waukesha, Wisconsin is mourning the loss of fellow citizens, family, and friends. Last night gathering for a prayer vigil not far from the scene of the tragedy. 5 dead, at least 48 injured, including 18 children, some still fighting for their lives.
There was just like so many bodies in the road, and then I saw them start to pick them up, and they were like little kids.
I literally saw roughly 10 people bounce off of that car, and you could hear thud, 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 thud as he drove through that.
Part of the chaos was captured on the city's live stream of the parade and various cell phone videos. One showing a child dancing in the street as the SUV speeds by. And we're learning more about the victims. 3 of those killed were part of the Milwaukee Dancing Grannies, a marching and dancing group of grandmothers that's been around for nearly 40 years. Brian Wallace says he was with one of them in her final moments.
She died in my arms.
The community is still reeling.
We are hurting. We are angry. We are sad. We are Waukesha strong.
39-year-old Daryl Brooks is in custody, facing 5 counts of first-degree intentional homicide. Police say Brooks had just left the scene of a domestic dispute but was not being pursued. And he has a long rap sheet, charged with 16 crimes since 1999. Earlier this month, he was accused of running over the mother of his child. And that's raising questions and a renewed call to give judges more power to set higher bails. Republicans calling it an example of a broken legal system. If convicted, Brooks could face life in prison. Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Again, this is absolutely horrific. You can't make any sense of it other than there is evil in this world. And when we encounter it, we need to stand up against it. This is absolutely horrible. Here's someone who was charged with using a car to run over the mother of his child and then released on a $1,000 bail. Then he's having another domestic dispute. We don't know who that was with, but there was another domestic dispute. Leaving the scene of that because police were called. Wasn't under any kind of chase by police vehicles, but made his own decision to go into that parade. This is evil. And you shake your head. What has happened to our culture? What has happened to the world? Have we lost all restraint? In other news, jury deliberations are expected to begin today in the trial over the killing of Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia. Ephraim Graham has that story from the CBN newsroom. Ephraim?
Gordon, prosecutors are set to make their final case as closing arguments spilled over into a second day. The prosecution gets the final word in this trial because it has to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt. 3 white men, Travis McMichael, his father Gregory, and William Bryan, are accused of chasing down and murdering Ahmaud Arbery, a 25-year-old black man. Defense attorneys argued Monday the McMichaels were attempting a citizen's arrest when they set off after Arbery, suspecting him of being a burglar, saying the killing was self-defense after Arbery chose to fight and claiming it was legal under a citizen's arrest law at the time.
And so he's done what he thinks the law allows him to do.
But the prosecution says Arbery was targeted because of his race.
And they made their decision to attack Ahmaud Arbery in their driveways because he was a black man running down the street.
Prosecutors also said there was no evidence Arbery had committed crimes in the defendant's neighborhood. Turning now to the Middle East, Christians are under attack in Syria. Some of the last ancient Christian communities in Syria are being hit by Turkish-backed forces. in a little-known part of the ongoing civil war which has gripped that country for more than a decade. CBN contributor Chuck Holton has been on the ground in Syria, where he's seen the conflict firsthand, and he brings us this report.
The shelling ongoing right now in the town of Daryl, just a couple kilometers from the Turkish border. This is most likely Turkish forces that are shelling this village that was made up of Christians and Assyrians. The idea is to make them want to leave, to drive everybody out of this area, because Turkey's plan is to try to resettle this whole area with Arab Syrians who fled as refugees into Turkey. Turkey's got something like 2.3 million of them, and their idea is to resettle them forcibly into this area.
4 months, and as you see here, they are shelling, sleeping with our families, with our kids, with our animals outside the village. That's what we are doing each day. Look.
This is the kind of damage that can be done by the rockets and shelling that Turkey is sending this way into northern Syria. We're in a different village now, about 30 kilometers south of the Turkish border, that regularly gets shelled. You can see here the crater where the shell landed, and it just destroyed this whole part of the house. This is what the people are dealing with in Christian villages like this one, and that's why they're having to flee.
The Daryl is the front of the front. And it's the last position. Yes, it's our last position for North Untitled Chapter. We used to come to the village from Sarikania Road, but we are not able to use that road now. We are using the Info Road. So there was a lot of civilians here, maybe 14, 15 families. But since the last week, they left. They come here mornings and they left evenings. It's a problem.
There are abandoned Christian villages like this all throughout this part of northern Syria. And walking through them is an eerie experience, because like this particular village had over 2,000 people living in it. And today it's a ghost town. Right there behind me is the church that they were working on when they had to flee, and the church was never finished. But even with the people being gone, the Turks still continue to shell these villages in an attempt just to deny people the ability to move back in.
From northern Syria, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
We now have a happier story we want to share from the Middle East, from Israel. For several years, an Israeli foundation has held the Miss Holocaust Survivor beauty pageant. As Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, while the COVID-19 pandemic put the pageant on hold, it recently made a comeback.
86-year-old Selena Steinfeld won the 2021 Miss Holocaust Survivor beauty pageant. The pageant celebrated how these women not only survived the horrors of the Holocaust, but passed on a legacy of life and hope to future generations.
Probably the most beautiful evening I've had in a really long time, celebrating their, we spoke about the cliche of like our inner beauty surpasses our outer beauty. It's true tonight.
The Friends of Zion Museum, founded by Mike Evans, hosted the event.
And these Holocaust survivors, their parents weren't killed over land. They were killed because they were Jews. So this inspires the younger generation, but it also gives them with optimism.
The beauties of today honored the survivors of yesterday.
It's very important to me also because I'm a third generation from both of my sides to Holocaust survivors. So it's like a closure to me.
Organizers hosted the contestants for several days, and professional makeup artists hampered the survivors. To them, it was like a dream.
Crazy, like in a movie. Crazy, everything is crazy. I don't believe it's true.
The survivors got to tell their story during the broadcast, seen in several countries, online, and covered by dozens of media outlets.
I remember everything as if I can see it now. They expelled us from the village, and we went on death marches. thousands and thousands of people. I had typhus, and they sent my mother and me to a partisan hospital in the woods. But there was snow, and we didn't have shoes. We went on foot. I had a fever of 40 degrees. My mother raised us in ditches where there was a lot of lice, and we cried day and night because we had nothing to eat.
But they survived the horrors and raised up another generation.
She's my mother, she's my queen, and she's my survivor.
Leah Schneer's mother was a twin who survived the gruesome experiments by the infamous Dr. Josef Mengele at Auschwitz.
I was born as a miracle because nobody knew at that time what Mengele put in their bodies, what injections, so that she gave birth to a healthy child. That's a miracle.
Many of the survivors thank God.
But there is a God in heaven, and he protected me. God helped me, and I was fortunate. I'm in the Holy Land, in Israel.
Some felt the survivors reflected the words of the prophet Isaiah, who wrote, "To give them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning."
I don't forget this. Only I forgive.
Schneer served as one of the judges.
I see all these beautiful, beautiful Holocaust survivors women, and I said, for me, nobody has to win. They all won. For me, everybody is a beauty queen.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Beauty for ashes. Thank God for their survival. Gordon?
Well, congratulations to the Friends of Zion Museum for what a wonderful idea to honor Holocaust survivors. Let them know that we care and we won't forget. At the same time, in the world today, do you see anti-Semitism? Yes, indeed, and it's at levels that I never thought we'd see. And it's rising here in the United States as well as Europe. And it's more than just what's going on in the West Bank and Gaza. There seems to be some spiritual force behind it. I cannot not understand why, when the FBI is tracking hate crimes based on religion, the #1 in America today is against Jews. That should not happen in our culture, in our society. So let's pray for their protection. Let's pray for the peace of Jerusalem.